we will question, and it's right to question, that when Hassan was talking to us about the nature of why is it God-given right to have it in Europe and why does this have to be that way, because the legacy of these sports originated in this part of the world, and there is a question to be asked of the motivation for wanting these sports in the manner that you do. You know, there's no need for the Saudis to pay for £100 million facility fee for Tyson Fury to fight Anthony Joshua. They just do because they can, and they want to use it as a lever for soft influence. And there will always be an issue with people about that, and emerging countries and emerging marketplaces and emerging cultures and emerging economies, which will challenge people. And of course, if those cultures are not fitting in with certain aspects of human rights, you're going to have this challenge. So it is right that people push back. It is not just, and we did with Hassan, and we spoke about it afterwards, and we spoke about it to him. I don't believe it's just a case of that they have a God-given right. But if you originated something and all of your genesis for this sport was for the sport, I don't believe that the Middle Eastern motivation all the time is simply for the sport. It is for other reasons.
Out of interest, is it your belief, it's certainly mine, that a UK World Cup is further away than ever?
I hope not. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And, you know, we differ on this greatly about how our press tend to flagellate ourselves and put us in terrible positions when we do things that many other people repeat around the world as well. But I don't think the next World Cup, I don't think it's fair. If we're talking about the next idea of a World Cup being in 2030, well, if we've gone to the Americas, we've gone to the Middle East, we should be back into Europe potentially, we should be talking to the African continents again. It's not just a given now all of a sudden because the Qataris have put on a wonderful World Cup, and I'm perplexed. I can't understand the Carvey Solocals of the world that go over there with one from Sky, that go over there with one state of mind. I went over there with a state of mind. I had a preordained perspective. I went over there, did some research, found out some facts, and came back with a slightly different state of mind. So I'm perplexed how other people have gone over there, seen it, and come back with their minds unchanged. That, to me, is a preordained perspective that you were never going to change.
And they were open to being asked the hard questions, and we did it.
And I think so, we did. And I think that we asked questions that others didn't, and that we've got legs in this interview because we were the ones that got it. You were the person that got it. You were the person that drove the interview. And, you know, and the questions that were put together by Luke and yourself were brilliant, and they were no stone unturned. And that is now an interview that no one else has got, and everyone else has fed off the back of it, whoever they may be. And ultimately, if people can't see that there was lots of things about that World Cup were right, it doesn't now mean that it's a shoe-in for every single opportunity for Middle Eastern to take every sport, but they have a right to be at the table and considered equitably and fairly. But they also have to accept that with that comes the challenges of judgments. Because if you are going to run a culture where not only does your religious belief outlaw homosexuality, you criminalise it as well, you're going to have challenges with that. Of course. And if you have run a very poor situation with workers' rights, you've changed it now, and it should be about what's happening now. But you do have to be accountable for the past. Yeah. And we all are guilty. We all have a past. It's like the old saying, isn't it? Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And we seem to forget that. That's right. You know, in this world that we live in.
Are you for or against it? The concept of a World Cup every 3 years, which Infantino's pushing for?
I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I would like to understand how it goes against, how it plays into the narrative of the status quo that seems to be working quite well. Why we need, I've always believed that scarcity is a valuable commodity. It makes things more valuable. Then when you start to diminish that, it starts to diminish the returns. And I was very much against the 2-year, the biannual World Cup. So subsequently, I must be against the 3-year because I think we have ample football in terms of tournaments. The World Cup every 4 years is a valuable proposition. Yeah. It should be maintained. The European Championships every 4 years, a valuable proposition. And I don't think there's a necessity for it. Unless someone's going to give me a white paper that tells me how football is going to be structured for the benefit of football, how everyone's going to be advanced, how pyramids are going to be...
I think we can see why though, Simon. FIFA love it. 6.2 billion record revenues.
Yes.
Every 4 years now. Let's change that. Let's make it every 3 years.
But if it shows us a blueprint of how this evolves football, for the betterment of football, not for those that are sitting in seats of authority and power and influence, but for those that are going to get the betterment of football, for grassroots in every part of the world, for every structure of football, so that everywhere you go in the world's greatest game is played at every level with the most resources available to it. Not just the elite footballers, and not just the dignitaries that sit inside stands being able to doff their caps at the world. The real people that support football. And if FIFA can show as a not-for-profit That's key.
Sure.
It's a not-for-profit. It's
Yeah.
not what it's doing. It should be commercialised. It should be taken away from people like Infantino. It should be commercialised, and then we should see the distributions of it better.
Well, it was Qatar 2022, and it was record revenue as a result of it for FIFA. Will it be Saudi Arabia in 2030? They're certainly going to bid. Is it now accepted the Middle East has become a serious player for sport?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.